Welcome to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm your host, Evelyn Whitaker. Pull up a cozy chair by the fire, dear listener, and let me transport you to the elegant yet treacherous world of 1920s England. Tonight, we delve into a tale of poison, deceit, and the brilliant mind of Hercule Poirot. Yes, you heard that right. Poirot steps into what might have been Miss Marple's territory. But fate has other plans. This is Poison in the Tea Room of Candlewick Fields, a deadly Miss Marple case. It's a long one, perfect for a relaxing evening. So settle in, and tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? London, the countryside, or perhaps somewhere exotic? Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. Introduction and Setup. In the golden haze of a 1920s summer, the estate of Candlewick Fields lay like a polished gem amidst the rolling hills of rural England, a mere hour's train from London's clamor. It was July 1927, a time when the scars of the Great War lingered in hushed tones at dinner parties, and the jazz age draped a glittering veil over old sorrows. Candlewick Fields, the ancestral seat of the Harrington family, was a Georgian masterpiece, its honey-colored stone facade gleaming under the sun, its manicured gardens a riot of roses and lavender, and its ancient oaks whispering secrets older than the manor itself. At the heart of the estate stood the tea room, a glass-walled pavilion with lace curtains and wicker furniture, offering sweeping views of wildflower fields swaying in the breeze. This charming annex, famed for its afternoon teas, was soon to become a stage for tragedy. Sir Reginald Harrington, the patriarch, was a man of 65 whose presence filled every room like the robust aroma of his beloved Darjeeling. With a shock of white hair, a mustache curled like the handlebars of a vintage made her a formidable presence. Married to Reginald a decade ago after the untimely death of his first wife in a riding accident, Eleanor was a master of the social arts. She orchestrated garden parties, chaired charitable boards, and ensured Candlewick's reputation as a beacon of refinement. Yet village gossip, cruel as gossip often is, whispered that she had been Reginald's mistress before his first wife's passing, a rumor she dismissed with a cool smile. Beneath her poised exterior, Eleanor harbored ambitions that stretched beyond the manor's walls, and her influence over Reginald's decisions was a source of tension. Miss Amelia Harrington, Reginald's daughter from his first marriage, was a stark contrast to her stepmother. At 25, Amelia was a modern woman. Her chestnut hair bobbed in the flapper style, her wardrobe a parade of silk dresses that scandalized the older staff. She had recently returned from London, where she pursued studies in botany at a women's college, her passion for plants bordering on obsession. Her greenhouse, tucked behind the manor, was a jungle of exotic specimens, some rumored to possess deadly properties. Amelia's relationship with her father was strained. He viewed her academic pursuits as frivolous, while she resented his attempts to mold her into a proper heiress. With Eleanor, the dynamic was colder still. Amelia suspected her stepmother of scheming to secure the bulk of the Harrington fortune, a suspicion that festered like a weed in her heart. Captain Victor Langford, Reginald's nephew, was a permanent fixture at Candlewick, his presence as much a burden as a charm. At 32, Victor was tall, broad-shouldered, and undeniably handsome, with a roguish grin that masked a troubled soul. A decorated hero of the Western Front, he bore a limp from a shrapnel wound and a penchant for whiskey that grew stronger with his mounting gambling debts. Victor's easy charm won hearts, but his financial troubles were no secret. He had borrowed heavily from Reginald in the past, only to squander the funds at cost. Was formal, tinged with mutual distrust. Rumors swirled that Reginald planned to retire her without a pension, a prospect that stung deeply. Dr. Elias Thorne, the family physician, was a frequent visitor, his scholarly air and wire-rimmed spectacles giving him an aura of quiet authority. At 48, he was a man of reserved charm, with a passion for rare books and a reputation for discretion. He had treated the Harringtons through fevers, injuries, and grief, earning their trust, though some whispered his interest in Amelia went beyond professional. A substantial loan from Reginald, taken years ago to fund his practice, remained unpaid, a fact that occasionally surfaced in tense exchanges. Dr. Thorne's presence at Candlewick was as much social as medical, his evenings spent debating literature with Reginald or advising Eleanor on her migraines. The stage was set on a balmy July afternoon when Sir Reginald announced a special gathering in the tea room. "A celebration of life and legacy," he declared at breakfast, his voice booming with theatrical flair. The tea room was prepared with care. Silver trays bore delicate bone china cups, scones sat beside clotted cream and strawberry jam, and the air was thick with the scent of jasmine and bergamot from Reginald's prized tea blends. The guests assembled at 4 o'clock. Eleanor in a sapphire gown, Amelia clutching a botanical notebook, Victor nursing a discreet flask, Beatrice bustling with trays, and Dr. Thorne adjusting his cuffs with precision. Enter Hercule Poirot, the Belgian detective whose reputation for unraveling the impossible preceded him. With his egg-shaped head, meticulously waxed mustache, and eyes that missed nothing, Poirot was a figure of quiet brilliance. He was in the area at the invitation of a nearby estate, a weekend retreat arranged by an old friend, Inspector Japp of Scotland Yard. Japp, vacationing in the village, had insisted Poirot visit Candlewick. "It's your kind of place, Poirot," Japp had said, puffing his pipe. "Grand, secretive, and ripe for a mystery." Poirot ensured every cup was filled. The sun dipped lower, casting golden rays through the glass walls, painting the fields in hues of amber and rose. No one suspected that within hours, the tea room would transform from a haven of civility into a chamber of death. As the clock struck 5, the air was warm, the laughter light, and the cups clinked softly. Yet, beneath the surface, motives simmered. Greed, resentment, revenge, and secrets from a train far away. Poirot, sipping his tisane, observed the faces around him, unaware that his gray cells would soon face one of their greatest challenges. And so, dear listeners, the curtain rises on our tale. What lies ahead? A sip of poison, a locked door, and a puzzle only Poirot can solve. Stay with me. Chapter 2. The Crime Discovered. The tea service at Candlewick Fields was a ritual of precision. A ballet of silver and porcelain orchestrated by Mrs. Beatrice Croft, the housekeeper whose 30 years of service had honed her instincts to a razor's edge. The tea room, a glass-walled pavilion with lace curtains fluttering like delicate specters, hummed with the soft clinks of spoons against bone china and the murmur of polite conversation. Sir Reginald Harrington, the patriarch, presided over the gathering with the gusto of a man who savored both his tea and his audience. His white hair gleamed in the late afternoon light. His mustache twitched with each hearty chuckle, and his tales of the Orient Express held the group captive, or at least politely attentive. The guests, seated around a circular wicker table adorned with a lace runner, represented the intricate web of Candlewick's inner circle. Lady Eleanor Harrington, regal in her sapphire gown, sipped her tea with the dainty precision of a woman accustomed to scrutiny. Her green eyes darted occasionally to Reginald, a flicker of something, affection, calculation, passing through them. Miss Amelia Harrington, Reginald's daughter, was less restrained. Hills blended to perfection. He insisted on sampling the first pour, a habit born of pride rather than suspicion. "Exquisite," he declared, taking a deep swallow, his mustache quivering with approval. The others followed, Eleanor with measured sips, Amelia with distracted haste, Victor with his whiskey-laced gulp, Dr. Thorne with a connoisseur's pause, and Poirot abstaining, stirring his lemon-infused water with a silver spoon. Conversation flowed as freely as the tea. Reginald, in high spirits, leaned forward, his voice rich with theatricality. "On the Orient Express I met a countess, Russian, mysterious with eyes like winter. She spoke of poisons used in ancient courts, subtle as a whisper, undetectable as a shadow." He chuckled, oblivious to the nervous glances exchanged among the group. Eleanor smiled thinly, murmuring about the dangers of foreign travel. Amelia, half listening, sketched a leaf in her notebook. Victor laughed too loudly, masking unease, while Dr. Thorne adjusted his spectacles and remarked on the chemistry of such toxins. Beatrice, refilling the pot, muttered something about the folly of exotic tales. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the fields, the golden light filtering through the tea room's glass walls. The clock on the mantel struck 5:30, its chimes mingling with the hum of voices. Then abruptly the harmony shattered. Sir Reginald paused mid-sentence, his cup halfway to his lips. I feel queer," he gasped, his voice hoarse, his hand clutching his throat. His face paled to an ashen gray, his eyes widened in panic, and a tremor shook his robust frame. The cup slipped from his fingers, clattering to the floor, amber tea pooling on the polished wood. He convulsed, a horrible choking sound escaping his lips, foam flecking his mustache, before he slumped forward, lifeless, his head striking the table with a dull thud. Chaos erupted. Eleanor screamed, a high, piercing sound that rattled the china. Amelia froze, her notebook falling to the floor, her eyes locked on her father's crumpled form. Victor leaped from his chair, knocking over his own cup, and knelt beside Reginald, the only key in his pocket, a fact Beatrice confirmed with a trembling nod. The windows, framed in wrought iron, were latched securely, their glass unmarred. No one had entered or exited since the gathering began at 4 o'clock, and the group had remained seated throughout. Poirot knelt beside the spilled cup, sniffing cautiously. "Oui, the scent of almonds. Cyanide, as Monsieur le Docteur says." Inspector Japp, summoned by a frantic footman dispatched to the village, arrived within the hour, his sturdy frame filling the doorway. "Poirot, old chap, what's this mess? Looks like a nasty business." He puffed on his pipe, surveying the scene as constables cordoned off the tea room. "Cyanide, you say? Quick and deadly. But how? In a locked room with everyone watching." The body was examined under Poirot's watchful gaze. No wounds, no marks, only the telltale signs of poison: dilated pupils, clenched fists, and that faint, bitter scent. The teapot and cups were seized for analysis, and a constable reported later that evening. Cyanide was present in Reginald's cup alone, not in the communal pot or other cups. The mystery deepened. How had the poison reached only his tea, poured from a shared source in full view? Initial questioning began in the fading light. Eleanor, composed but pale, spoke of Reginald's business rivals in the tea trade, hinting at enemies who might resort to drastic measures. "He had dealings with unsavory types abroad," she said, her voice steady but her hands twisting a lace handkerchief. Amelia, still shaken, mentioned her father's will, her voice breaking. "He was revising it, said he'd make changes soon. I don't know what." Victor admitted his debts, his face flushed. "Uncle was fed up with bailing me out, but I'd never." He trailed off, glancing at his flask. Dr. Thorne noted Reginald's heart condition, suggesting it might complicate the poisoning. Perhaps a natural death? But the cyanide scent dismissed that theory. Beatrice, tearful, insisted the tea was prepared fresh, the pot untouched. Beatrice whispered a prayer. Outside, the wildflowers stood still, as if holding their breath. And there we pause, listeners, with death in the air and a mystery locked tight. What do you think? Who slipped the poison into that fatal cup? Join me next time as Poirot begins to unravel the threads. Until then, sweet dreams. Chapter 3. Investigation begins. The dawn broke over Candlewick Fields with a somber glow, the morning mist clinging to the wildflower fields like a shroud. The manor, so vibrant the previous day, now felt stifled, its Georgian elegance marred by the specter of murder. The tea room, sealed by Inspector Japp's constables, stood silent, its glass walls reflecting the gray sky. Inside the manor, the drawing room had been transformed into a makeshift headquarters, its mahogany furniture pushed aside to accommodate Japp's desk, strewn with notebooks and a smoldering pipe. The inspector, his ruddy face creased with frustration, paced before a roaring fire. "Poirot, old chap," he said, puffing smoke. "This is a devil of a case. Cyanide in one cup, a locked room, and not a whiff of how it was done. You're the man for it, aren't you?" Hercule Poirot, impeccable in his black suit, stood by the window, his hands clasped behind his back, his mustache a perfect curve. "Bien sûr, Inspector," he replied, his voice calm and measured. Hercule Poirot does not shy from a challenge. This crime, it is a puzzle of order and method, and my little gray cells, they are already at work. His green eyes gleamed with the quiet thrill of the hunt, his mind sifting through the chaos of the previous evening. The investigation began in earnest. Japp, with his practical efficiency, organized interviews, while Poirot requested a thorough examination of the tea room and the manor's grounds. "We must understand the stage, mon ami," Poirot said, "before we interrogate the players, but first, the suspects, each a thread in the tangled web of Candlewick Fields." Lady Eleanor Harrington was summoned first, gliding into the drawing room with the tremor in her fingers. A detail filed away for his gray cells. Next came Miss Amelia Harrington, her flapper energy subdued, her eyes red-rimmed from grief or guilt. She wore a simple green dress, her bobbed hair slightly disheveled, her botanical notebook clutched like a shield. "Father and I argued yesterday," she said, her voice breaking. "He called my botany studies frivolous, said I should marry and settle. But I loved him, Monsieur Poirot." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Mademoiselle, you study plants. Dangerous ones, no?" Amelia flushed. "Yes. I have cyanide in my greenhouse for pest control. Locked away, of course." Her motive? Resentment. And perhaps the freedom to pursue her passion. She admitted being near the teapot to fetch sugar, but swore she touched nothing else. "I was distracted, sketching," she said, showing her notebook. Poirot noted a faint stain on her fingers. Ink? Or something else? Captain Victor Langford sauntered in, his charm dimmed by a hangover's pallor. His limp was more pronounced today, his jacket rumpled, though his grin remained defiant. "Uncle was a good sort, but he was fed up with my debts," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "I owe thousands. Cards, horses, you name it. He refused another loan last week. Motive? Financial desperation." Victor confessed to spiking his tea with whiskey from his flask, but insisted it was harmless. "I wandered to the kitchen earlier to chat with the cook," he said. "But I didn't touch the tea." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And this flask, Capitaine, may I see it?" Victor handed it over reluctantly. It smelled only of whiskey, but Poirot tucked the detail away. Dr. Elias Thorne entered next, his scholarly air intact despite the circumstances. His spectacles glinted as he adjusted them, his hands steady, but his brow furrowed. "As Reginald's physician, I knew his health, heart condition, but stable," he said. "Cyanide? I keep it for chemical experiments, locked in my surgery." Motive: calluses on her hands. The faint scent of tea leaves clinging to her. With interviews concluded, Poirot toured the estate, Jap trailing with a notepad. The tea room was first. Its oak door, locked during the crime, bore a single keyhole, the key still in Reginald's pocket. The windows, latched and intact, showed no signs of tampering. The glass walls offered no hiding places, the wicker furniture too delicate to conceal anything sinister. In the kitchen, Beatrice's domain was spotless, pots gleaming, no trace of cyanide in the stores. Poirot lingered by the tea canisters, sniffing each blend. "Darjeeling, oui, but nothing more," he murmured. The gardens beckoned next, particularly Amelia's greenhouse, a humid jungle of exotic plants. Vials of chemicals lined Mear, cyanide among them, were locked in a cabinet. But the lock was flimsy. "A child could open this," Poirot noted, his tone dry. Amelia nearby bristled. "It's secure enough," she said, but doubt lingered in her eyes. A clue emerged in Reginald's study, a crumpled note in his desk reading, "Beware the Orient's shadow." From his train journey? Poirot pocketed it, his mind racing. "The Orient Express, it seems, follows us," he said to Jap, who frowned. "A coincidence, surely." Jap's report arrived by noon. The autopsy confirmed cyanide, ingested via tea, with no other toxins. The teapot was clean, but Reginald's cup held traces of the poison. "How, Poirot?" Jap demanded. "Everyone saw the pour." Poirot smiled faintly. "That, mon ami, is the question." In the tea room, Poirot gathered the suspects, their faces tense. "Mes amis," he said, his voice slow and deliberate. "This is no accident. One of you is a poisoner." The room was locked, the tea shared, yet only Sir Reginald died. How? Eleanor gasped. Victor cursed softly. Amelia clutched her notebook. Thorne adjusted his glasses, and Beatrice prayed breath. The July sun struggled through heavy clouds, casting a muted light over the wildflower fields, while inside, the drawing room buzzed with Inspector Japp's restless energy. "Poirot," he said, tapping his pipe against a notepad. "We've got motives galore, but no method. Cyanide in one cup, a locked room. How's it done?" Hercule Poirot, his black suit pristine despite the hour, stood by the fireplace, his hands clasped, his mustache a perfect arc. "Patience, mon ami," he replied, his voice slow and deliberate. "The puzzle, it reveals itself in the details. The smallest thread may unravel the whole." His green eyes gleamed, and he set to work, determined to separate truth from the fog of deception. Poirot returned to the tea room, now a crime scene guarded by a dour constable. The glass-walled pavilion with its lace curtains and wicker furniture seemed an unlikely stage for murder, yet the evidence was undeniable. Sir Reginald's cup alone bore traces of cyanide. Poirot examined the room with meticulous care, his gloved fingers tracing the oak door's lock, still secure, the key safe in Japp's custody. The windows, latched tightly, showed no signs of forced entry, but a faint scratch on one sill caught his eye. "Curieux," he murmured, bending closer. Could it suggest an attempt to break in? He summoned the head gardener, a grizzled man named Mr. Gibbs, who shuffled in, cap in hand. "That mark, sir? Made it myself 3 days ago, fixing a loose latch." Poirot nodded, filing the scratch as a red herring. Intriguing, but irrelevant. In Reginald's study, a treasure trove of clues awaited. Poirot rifled through a mahogany desk, its drawers stuffed with ledgers and letters. One ledger revealed the Harrington finances in disarray. Victor owed £5,000 to London bookmakers. Dr. Thorne's unpaid loan of £2,000 was marked overdue, and Eleanor's expenditures on gowns and galas were circled with Reginald's scrawl. The pages, alongside a cryptic note. Dosage, 0.1 gram, lethal. A page was torn out, its jagged edge conspicuous. "Mademoiselle," Poirot said, his tone gentle but firm. "What was on this missing page?" Amelia flushed. "Just personal notes, nothing important." Her eyes darted away. A clue or a red herring? Poirot pocketed the observation, his gray cells humming. Captain Victor Langford's room was next, a cluttered space reeking of whiskey and tobacco. Poirot found a receipt from a London bookmaker, dated the morning of the murder. "Proof I was in town," Victor said, his grin strained. "Back by noon, though, ask the chauffeur." Japp verified the receipt, genuine, but it only accounted for Victor's morning, not the critical afternoon. A false clue designed to mislead? Poirot also discovered a crumpled letter in Victor's waste bin. "Pay or face ruin," from a creditor, or another red herring planted to deflect suspicion. Dr. Thorne's medical bag left in the guest room yielded a curious find. An empty vial labeled cyanide, tucked among bandages and tonics. Thorne, summoned, adjusted his spectacles nervously. For a patient's chemical treatment, he explained. Used up months ago. Jap dispatched a constable to verify. The patient, an elderly farmer, confirmed the treatment, but noted it ended weeks before the murder. A red herring? Or sloppy record-keeping? Poirot's gaze lingered on Thorne's steady hands, wondering what they concealed. Mrs. Beatrice Croft's quarters, Spartan and tidy, offered little at first glance. But Poirot, ever thorough, noticed a loose floorboard under her bed. Beneath it lay a diary, its pages filled with meticulous notes on the household's routines. One entry dated a week prior read, "Sir R. threatens no pension. After all I've given. A motive, resentment after decades of service." Beatrice, confronted, wept. Mysterious letter arrived at the manor. Postmarked, London. The killer is among the heirs. Unsigned, it deepened the suspicion. Victor, pale, suggested it was a prank. Poirot wondered, sent by Victor to deflect, or by another to confuse. The Orient Express loomed again, as Poirot recalled Reginald's tales of a Russian countess and smugglers. Was the note a link to that journey, or another false trail? Gossip among the staff added layers. A maid swore she saw Eleanor and Dr. Thorne in a private moment weeks ago, hinting at an affair. Thorne denied it, but his flush betrayed discomfort. Amelia Suter, a rival botanist named Mr. Harrow, had visited recently, his jealousy over her inheritance a possible motive. Poirot filed each whisper, each glance, each inconsistency. He walked the fields alone, the wild flowers swaying under a gray sky. The impossible crime, he mused aloud. Poison in one cup, from a shared pot, in a locked room. The method, it eludes but not for long. Jap, trailing behind, grumbled, "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" Poirot's smile was faint. "The puzzle. It is my joy." A breakthrough came late that evening. A kitchen maid, timid and overlooked, reported seeing Victor linger by the teapot before tea, fiddling with something. Victor, confronted, admitted fetching a spoon but swore innocence. Jap, exasperated, arrested him on circumstantial evidence, debts, proximity, opportunity. But Poirot intervened. "Too obvious, mon ami. The red herrings, they swim thick here. Release him, for now." As night fell, the manor's shadows deepened, and Poirot stood in the tea room, alone. "The truth," he whispered. "It hides in plain sight." The suspects, restless in their rooms, felt the noose of suspicion tighten. Who among them had the cunning to poison a single cup under watchful eyes? Oh, listeners, the clues mount, but so do the shadows. What do you make of these tangled threads? Share your theories below. Who's the poisoner? Away the distractions. His green eyes glinted, and he set to work, chasing the elusive method behind the cyanide's deadly dance. The release of Captain Victor Langford had stirred the household, his swagger returning but his eyes wary. Jap's premature arrest, based on debts and proximity to the teapot, crumbled when a maid confirmed seeing Victor outside the tea room during the critical pouring, chatting with a stable hand. "I told you, Poirot," Victor said, his grin strained. "I'm no killer." Poirot's gaze was unyielding. "Perhaps, Capitaine, but innocence is not yet proven." The retraction shifted suspicion, and the household's fragile calm shattered as new complications arose. Lady Eleanor Harrington was the first to falter. During a tense breakfast, she clutched her throat mid-sip of coffee, gasping, "Poison! It's happening again." She collapsed dramatically, her black mourning dress pooling around her. Dr. Elias Thorne, ever the physician, rushed to her side, his spectacles glinting as he checked her pulse. "Indigestion," he declared after a tense examination. "Likely from stress. Tests later confirmed no poison, but Eleanor's theatrics sowed doubt. Was she diverting suspicion, or genuinely terrified of being next?" Poirot noted her trembling hands, a detail echoing her interview, and wondered if fear masked cunning. Amelia Harrington, meanwhile, vanished briefly that morning, causing a panic. A footman found her in the greenhouse, frantically burning pages from her botanical notebook. "Personal notes," she stammered when confronted, her cheeks flushed, her green dress stained with ash. Poirot, summoned, retrieved a singed fragment from the ashes. Secret air, Orient journey, a twist emerged. Reginald had confessed to Amelia days before his death about a child from a liaison during his travels, a potential heir who threatened her inheritance. "He said he'd provide for them," Amelia admitted, tears in her eyes. "I was angry, but I didn't kill him." Was her destruction of evidence a sign of guilt, or a desperate bid to protect her future? Poirot's desk confirmed her pension was secured, contradicting her fears of retirement without support. "I didn't know," she said, her gray bun trembling as she spoke. "He never told me." Her loyalty to the family, particularly Amelia, seemed genuine, but her access to the kitchen and Amelia's cyanide kept her suspect. Poirot recalled her diary's bitter entry, wondering if deeper resentment lingered. The Orient Express loomed larger, a thread weaving through the mystery. Poirot revisited the cryptic note, "Beware the Orient's shadow," and learned from a telegram to Jap that Reginald had blackmailed a fellow passenger during his journey, a doctor with a wartime scandal. Was it Thorne? Confronted, Thorne paled. "Reginald knew I falsified a medical report to save a friend during the war," he admitted. "He held it over me, but I paid him off." A motive or another distraction? The note's origin remained elusive, its postmark from London suggesting a local hand. A second death shocked the manor. The head gardener, Mr. Gibbs, was found dead in a locked shed, his body slumped over a workbench, a faint almond scent on his breath. Cyanide again. The shed's door was bolted from the inside, another impossible crime. A suicide note read, "I tampered with the tea room window. Forgive me." But Gibbs's death predated the murder by hours, and his note referred to a botched repair, not sabotage. Poirot examined the scene, noting the shed's lock was rusty, easily manipulated. "A red herring, mon ami," he told Jap. "Gibbs took his own life, unrelated to our crime, but someone may wish us to think otherwise." Poirot's focus returned to the tea room's mechanics. He tested a theory. Could the cyanide have been in the sugar cubes? Reginald took none, but Poirot examined the sugar bowl, finding a faint residue, bitter, but not cyanide. "A distraction," he muttered, dismissing it. Another idea, a switched cup. "But the cup use," Jap said, but Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Oh, so it seems, mon ami." The anonymous letter, "The killer is among the heirs," resurfaced in Poirot's mind. He questioned the postmark, suspecting a local sender. Was it Victor, deflecting blame? Or Amelia, masking her fears? The household grew tense, whispers of affairs and betrayals surfacing. A footman claimed Amelia's suitor, Mr. Harrow, had argued with Reginald about her dowry. He was furious, the footman said. Another red herring, or a new suspect. Poirot gathered the group in the drawing room, the fire casting flickering shadows. "Mesdames et messieurs," he said, his voice a velvet blade. "The web tightens. The poison was not in the pot, nor the sugar, nor the air. It was in the cup, delivered with precision. But who and how?" Eleanor gasped. Victor clenched his fists. Amelia stared at the floor. Thorne polished his glasses, and Beatrice murmured a prayer. Jap, exasperated, muttered, "Poirot, you're maddening." Poirot's smile was serene. "The truth, it is near. The little gray cells, they see through the fog." As night fell, a storm brewed over Candlewick Fields, thunder rumbling like an accusation. Poirot stood alone in the tea-room, the glass walls reflecting his silhouette. "The method," he whispered. "It is clever, but not invisible." A new question gnawed. Had the killer acted alone, or was there a conspiracy? Oh, listeners, the plot twists like a serpent. Who do you suspect now? Share your guesses below. What's the key to this deadly puzzle? Join me next time as Poirot edges closer to the truth. Until then, sweet dreams. Chapter 6. The Revelation. The fourth day at Candlewick Fields dawned with a restless hush, the Manor's Georgian elegance marred by the weight of unanswered questions. The wildflower fields lay drenched from the previous night's storm, their colors muted under a gray sky, as if reflecting the household's unease. Inside the drawing room the fire crackled, cast by Madame Croft, is shared, yet only his cup holds cyanide. The doors are locked, the windows latched. No one enters or exits. An impossible crime, no? But Hercule Poirot, he does not believe in the impossible, only in the cleverness of the guilty. He paced, his patent leather shoes clicking softly. First, the motives. Each of you had reason to wish Sir Reginald harm. Lady Eleanor, the will threatened your wealth, your status. Mademoiselle Amelia, your father's disapproval and a secret heir endangered your future. Capitan Victor, debts pressed you like a vice. Dr. Thorne, a wartime scandal and an unpaid loan hung over you. Madame Croft, the threat of a pensionless retirement stung your loyalty. But motive alone does not make a murderer. He turned to the method, the heart of the puzzle. The cyanide. It was in Sir Reginald's cup, not the pot. How? The sugar cubes? No, he took none. A switched cup? No, all were identical, and Madame Croft's pour was witnessed. The teapot's hidden compartment? Empty, a distraction. No, the answer lies elsewhere, in a detail so simple yet so cunning. Poirot paused, his gaze sweeping the room. The poison was not in the tea when poured. It was in the spoon. Sir Reginald's personal silver spoon, engraved with his initials, which he always used. A thin layer of cyanide, coated on the spoon, dissolved in the hot tea, unnoticed by all. The almond scent, masked by the Darjeeling's aroma, struck only when he drank deeply. Gasps rippled through the room. Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. Amelia clutched her notebook. Victor's jaw tightened. Thorne adjusted his spectacles, and Beatrice froze, her hands clasped tightly. Jap leaned forward. The spoon, Poirot? But who coated it? Poirot raised a finger. Let us examine the suspects. Dr. Thorne, you had access to cyanide. First wife, Clara, did not die in a riding accident, as all believed. She was poisoned by Reginald himself with a subtle toxin from his travels. You suspected. You waited. You planned. For 30 years you served, hiding your pain, until the moment was right. The room fell silent. The fires crackled, deafening. Poirot produced a small diary, retrieved from beneath Beatrice's floorboard. This, madame, tells the tale. Entries from years ago, noting Clara's symptoms. Cyanide, misdiagnosed. A recent entry. He took my sister. He will pay. You took the cyanide from Amelia's greenhouse, coated the spoon in the kitchen before tea, knowing it would dissolve undetected. Beatrice's shoulders sagged, tears streaming. Clara was my world, she whispered. He confessed to me last month, laughing, said it was his greatest secret. I couldn't bear it. I used Amelia's cyanide. She didn't know. I coated his spoon, just enough to kill quickly. Jap leapt to his feet. Good Lord, Poirot, the spoon! Constables moved toward Beatrice, who offered no resistance, her confession a release of decades of grief. For my sister, she murmured as handcuffs clicked. Poirot addressed the loose ends. The Orient Express note, "Beware the Orient's shadow," was sent by Beatrice, a taunt to Reginald, mailed from London during a shopping trip. The gardener's death, a suicide, was unrelated, though meant to confuse. The hidden passage, sealed. The perfume vial, a distraction. The torn notebook page, Amelia's fear of disinheritance. All red herrings, leading away from the simple truth. A sister's vengeance. Eleanor sobbed quietly. Amelia stared in shock. Victor exhaled, and Thorne bowed his head. Jap shook his head, marveling. Poirot, you've done it again. But the locked room, how's it irrelevant? Poirot smiled. The lock, it matters not. The spoon was golden stone, bathed in a tentative sunrise. The wildflower fields, still damp from the recent storm, shimmered with dew, as if the estate sought to cleanse itself of the darkness within. The tea room, its glass walls sealed by Inspector Jap's constables, stood like a crystal tomb, its lace curtains veiling the memory of Sir Reginald's final moments. Inside the drawing room, the air was heavy with the aftermath of Beatrice's confession. The fire's glow casting long shadows across the faces of the remaining household. Jap, his pipe forgotten on the desk, rubbed his temples. Poirot, you've cracked it. But what a mess. 30 years of loyalty turned to murder. Hercule Poirot, his black suit pristine, his mustache a perfect curve, stood by the window, his green eyes reflective. Mon ami, he said, his voice slow and deliberate. The heart, it carries wounds that time does not heal. But justice, it restores order. Let us see it done. Beatrice Croft, the housekeeper who had served the Harringtons for 3 decades, sat in a small parlor under guard. Her stout frame slumped, her gray bun loosened by grief. Her confession had poured forth like a river breaking a dam, each word heavy with the pain of her sister Clara's death. Clara was my light, she had whispered, as constables led her from the drawing room. Reginald took her, poisoned her, and laughed about it years later. I couldn't let him live. The diary, found beneath her floorboard, detailed her suspicions from Clara's supposed riding accident. A slow poison, misdiagnosed, and Reginald's callous admission during a drunken moment weeks before the tea-room murder. Beatrice had bided her time, her loyalty a mask, until Amelia's greenhouse provided the cyanide and Reginald's silver spoon offered the perfect method. Poirot, ever methodical, gathered the household one last time in the drawing room to tie up the loose ends. Lady Eleanor Harrington, her raven hair pinned tightly, sat with a handkerchief pressed to her lips, her emerald eyes red from tears. Amelia Harrington, her flapper spirit subdued. Distraction. The crime was complete before the door was sealed. He turned to Jap. The teapot, the cups, the sugar, all tested clean, oui. The spoon alone carried the poison. Jap nodded, producing a report from the laboratory. Spot on, Poirot. Traces of cyanide on the spoon, none elsewhere. Beatrice's fingerprints were on it, though that's expected. She handled all the silver. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Precisement. Her access, her knowledge of Sir Reginald's habits made it perfect. Poirot addressed the Orient Express note, "Beware the Orient's shadow," which had haunted the investigation. This, sent by Madame Croft, was a taunt, mailed during a London trip days before the murder. She knew of Reginald's travels, his stories, and used them to unsettle him, perhaps hoping to stir guilt. Beatrice, head bowed, murmured, "I wanted him to feel her shadow, Clara's, before he died." The gardener's suicide, another twist, was clarified. Mr. Gibbs, tormented by debts, had taken cyanide from Amelia's greenhouse, his note about the tea-room window a red herring born of guilt over a botched repair. Unrelated, Poirot said, but it muddied the waters, as the killer hoped. The hidden passage, sealed years ago, was dismissed as irrelevant, and Eleanor's perfume vial, bitter but harmless, proved another distraction. Amelia's torn notebook page, hinting at a secret heir, was her fear of disinheritance, not guilt. Each clue, Poirot said, was a thread in a tapestry of deception, woven to obscure the simple truth. A sister's vengeance. Beatrice, led to the parlor door, paused to face the household. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her eyes on Amelia. "You're like my own Miss Amelia. But he took Clara, and I had to act." Amelia, tears streaming, reached out but was restrained by Victor. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice breaking. Beatrice shook her head. "You'd have stopped me." As constables escorted Beatrice to a waiting police van, the manor felt have chased that passage or the Orient nonsense forever. Poirot's smile was modest. "The little gray cells, they see what the heart obscures. But this case, mon ami, it reminds us, justice, it is not always joy." As the household dispersed, Amelia approached Poirot, her eyes searching. "Monsieur Poirot, will the pain ever fade?" He took her hand gently. "Mademoiselle, time heals, but truth anchors. You will rebuild." She nodded, a flicker of resolve in her gaze. Poirot prepared to depart for London, his suitcase packed, his patent leather shoes gleaming. He stood in the manor's grand hall, the portraits of past Harringtons gazing down. Candlewick Fields, he mused. A place of beauty and secrets, like the human soul. Jap, escorting him to the car, chuckled. "You'll be back, Poirot. Trouble follows you like a shadow." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Perhaps, but I prefer to chase the shadows myself." The car rolled down the drive, the fields stretching endlessly under a clearing sky. The tea room, visible in the distance, stood silent, its glass walls reflecting the first true sunlight in days. Inside, the memory of a poisoned spoon lingered, a testament to a crime both simple and profound. Back in the village, Beatrice awaited trial, her confession ensuring justice would be swift. The Harringtons, scarred but enduring, faced a new chapter. Amelia vowed to preserve the estate, Eleanor planned a quiet retreat, Victor swore to reform, and Thorne offered his support, his debt forgiven. Candlewick Fields, though wounded, would heal, its wild flowers a promise of renewal. Poirot, gazing out the car window, reflected on the case. "The human heart," he murmured. "It brews poisons as potent as cyanide. But truth, it is the antidote." The manor faded from view, and London beckoned. Another puzzle surely waiting. And so, listeners, justice is served, but the echoes of Candlewick linger. What did you think of Beatrice's motive?
Candlewick Fields had stepped into her role with a determination that belied her 25 years. The will, finalized after Reginald's death, left her the estate and its vast tea trade fortune, a responsibility she embraced with a blend of grief and resolve. Gone were the flapper dresses and the restless energy of her London days. In their place, she wore tailored wool suits, her bobbed hair neatly pinned, her botanical notebook now filled with plans for the estate's gardens. She had converted the greenhouse into a research hub, cultivating rare plants for medicinal study, a tribute to her passion and a way to honor her father's legacy without his shadow. "I'll make Candlewick a place of growth, not death," she had written to Poirot in a letter, her words firm yet tinged with sorrow. The secret air from Reginald's Orient Express days, a fear that had haunted her, proved a mirage. No such child existed, the solicitor confirmed, leaving Amelia's inheritance secure. Lady Eleanor Harrington, once the poised queen of the manor, had chosen a quieter path. The revelation of Beatrice's motive, avenging Clara, Reginald's first wife, had shaken Eleanor, forcing her to confront her own complex bond with her late husband. She vacated Candlewick, leasing a modest townhouse in London's Mayfair, where she hosted small literary salons. Her raven hair now streaked with silver, her emerald eyes softened by introspection. "I loved him, Monsieur Poirot," she confided in a letter. "But I see now how his secrets hurt us all." Her affair with Dr. Thorne, admitted but long ended, was laid to rest, and she found solace in charity work, funding a hospital wing in Clara's name, a gesture of atonement for a past she hadn't fully understood. Captain Victor Langford, the roguish nephew, surprised all with his transformation. The weight of suspicion, though lifted, had sobered him. Amelia, in a gesture of familial loyalty, settled his gambling debts, extracting a promise of reform. Victor, his limp less noticeable in his newfound purpose, took a managerial role in the Harrington tea trade, overseeing shipment, wrote to Poirot, enclosing a rare botanical text as a gift. "Candlewick is Amelia's now, but will always be near." His wartime scandal, exposed by Reginald's blackmail, was buried with the past, and his practice thrived, serving the village with renewed dedication. The village itself buzzed with the tale of Candlewick's tragedy, the story of Beatrice's vengeance becoming a local legend. Beatrice Croft, tried and convicted, awaited sentencing in a London prison. Her confession ensured a swift trial,
Her motive, Clara's murder, eliciting sympathy even from the jury. "I don't regret it," she had said in court, her stout frame unbowed, her gray eyes resolute. Clara deserved justice. Amelia visited her once, a painful meeting where forgiveness was neither offered nor sought, but understanding passed between them. Beatrice's diary, now evidence, was returned to Amelia, who kept it locked away, a reminder of loyalty's double edge. Poirot, in his London flat, sipped a tisane, herbal, as always, while reviewing a parcel from Amelia. A tin of Harrington's finest Darjeeling, labeled poison-free, with gratitude. He smiled, his mustache twitching, and penned a reply. "Mademoiselle, your tea is a delight, but the truth, it is sweeter still." The case of Candlewick Fields had been a triumph of method over chaos, yet it left Poirot pensive. The Orient Express note, a taunt from Beatrice, had been mailed during a routine trip to London, its cryptic words a final jab at Reginald's guilt. The gardener's suicide, the hidden passage, the perfume vial, all distractions, skillfully woven by circumstance or design to obscure the simple elegance of a poisoned spoon. Inspector Japp, visiting Poirot's flat, marveled over a brandy. "That spoon, Poirot, brilliant! I'd have chased that blasted passage to kingdom come." Poirot chuckled, his eyes bright. "Ha ha ha, the human heart," he mused aloud. "It brews both poison and redemption. Hercule Poirot. He seeks the balance." The city hummed around him, its secrets waiting. But for now, Candlewick Fields was at peace, its wildflowers poised to bloom again come spring. The tale of the tea room, whispered in village pubs and London drawing rooms, became a cautionary story, of loyalty twisted, of vengeance patient, and of truth's quiet triumph. Amelia, Eleanor, Victor, and Thorne carried their scars, but also their strength, forging a new chapter for the Harrington legacy. The tea room, once a chamber of death, now glowed with life, its glass walls reflecting hope. And so, dear listeners, we close the book on Candlewick Fields. The poison is gone, the truth unveiled, and the manor breathes anew. What did you think of this tale's end? Would you dare sip tea in that room, knowing its history? Share your thoughts below and tell me, what mystery should we explore next? Until then, sweet dreams. Chapter 9. Suspect Reflections. 6 months after the tragedy in the tea room, Candlewick Fields stood resilient under a January sky, its golden stone walls catching the pale winter light. The wildflower fields, now a tapestry of frost, waited patiently for spring, while the manor hummed with cautious renewal. The tea room, cleansed of its dark history, hosted quiet gatherings, its glass walls reflecting hope rather than horror. Yet for Lady Eleanor Harrington, Amelia Harrington, Captain Victor Langford, and Dr. Elias Thorne, the revelation of Beatrice's crime, her cyanide-laced spoon avenging her sister Clara's murder by Sir Reginald, left wounds that time was only beginning to mend. Each had faced Poirot's piercing gaze, their motives laid bare. And now, in the quiet of their private moments, they reflected on the truth, their roles in it, and the path forward. Lady Eleanor Harrington sat in her new Mayfair townhouse, a far cry from Candlewick's grandeur, but a sanctuary of her own making. The parlor,
adorned with soft blues and a crack to atone for Reginald's sin and her own blindness. "I'll live quietly now," she vowed, penning a letter to Amelia, offering support. "Candlewick is yours, but I'm here." Her heart, bruised but lighter, sought peace in small acts of kindness, her salon's a haven for poets and dreamers. Amelia Harrington stood in her greenhouse, the humid air thick with the scent of earth and blooming orchids. At 26, she was the mistress of Candlewick, her flapper days replaced by the weight of responsibility. Her green dress was streaked with soil, her bobbed hair pinned back as she tended a rare plant, a hybrid she'd named Clara's Grace, in memory of Beatrice's sister. Poirot's deduction had cleared her of suspicion, but the accusation, her cyanide, her botanical knowledge, had cut deep. "I should have seen Beatrice's pain," she said aloud, her voice breaking as she clipped a leaf. The torn notebook page, revealing her fear of a secret heir, haunted her. Reginald's confession about a possible child from his Orient Express travels had fueled her anger, but learning it was a lie brought no relief. Beatrice's betrayal, using Amelia's own cyanide, felt personal. "She was like a mother," Amelia whispered, tears falling onto the soil. Her reflection turned to Beatrice's diary, now locked in her study. Reading it had been agonizing. Clara's symptoms, Beatrice's grief, the slow burn of revenge. Amelia resolved to honor both women. She'd fund a botanical scholarship for women, ensuring her passion uplifted others. "Father's legacy won't be poison," she said, gazing at the manor. Candlewick's future, under her care, would bloom with purpose, its tea room a symbol of renewal. Captain Victor Langford stood on the docks of a Ceylon port, overseeing a tea shipment for the Harrington Empire. The tropical sun beat down, his limp barely noticeable as he barked orders, his jacket replaced by a linen shirt, his pocket watch ticking steadily. 6 months ago, Poirot's scrutiny had pinned him as a suspect. His debts, his proximity, future. Not as a hero, but a man redeemed. Dr. Elias Thorne sat in his village surgery, the lamplight glinting off his spectacles as he updated patient records. His marriage to Eleanor, a quiet ceremony in London, had surprised many, but grounded him. Poirot's investigation had exposed his wartime scandal, falsifying a report to save a friend, and the unpaid loan from Reginald. "I thought he'd ruin me," Thorne said, closing a ledger. The codicil forgiving the loan, revealed after the murder, was a relief. But Beatrice's crime shook him. "She bandaged my cuts as a boy," he recalled, stunned by her hidden rage. His affection for Amelia, once misinterpreted as romantic, settled into mentorship. He advised her on the estate's medical outreach. Reflecting on Reginald, Thorne saw a flawed man, generous yet cruel. "Clara's death explains so much," he said, thinking of Reginald's guarded nature. Thorne's surgery thrived, serving the village, and his evenings with Eleanor were filled with books and quiet love. He sent Poirot a rare text inscribed, "To the man who sees all." His reflection was one of acceptance, past mistakes forgiven, a future built on trust. The village of Candlewick buzzed with the tale, its pub alive with retellings of the tea-room tragedy. Beatrice's trial, swift due to her confession, ended in a life sentence, her stoic acceptance softening the village's judgment. "She did it for Clara," the baker said, serving tea. Amelia's leadership won respect, her open-door policy welcoming villagers to the manor. The tea room, now a place of community teas, shed its grim past, though none used Reginald's silver spoon, now locked away. Poirot in his London flat received updates from Candlewick, each letter a thread in the tapestry he'd unraveled. Sipping a tisane, he read Amelia's note about Clara's grace, Victor's cigar, Thorne's book, and Eleanor's hospital wing. The human heart, he mused. It breaks, but it rebuilds. The Orient Express in a chill that contrasted with the warmth of his parlor. The year was 1928, 6 months since the tragedy at Candlewick Fields, and the case of the poisoned tea room lingered in his mind like the aftertaste of a fine tisane. His flat, a sanctuary of order, was adorned with polished mahogany, a single orchid in a crystal vase, and shelves of books that spoke of his eclectic tastes. On the table before him lay a tin of Harrington's Darjeeling, a gift from Amelia, labeled poison-free, with gratitude. He smiled, his mustache twitching, as he poured a cup of herbal tisane. Never tea, for Poirot preferred clarity over custom. The firelight danced on his patent leather shoes, and his green eyes, sharp as ever, gazed into the flames, his thoughts returning to the manor where a silver spoon had concealed a deadly secret. The case of Candlewick Fields, Poirot mused aloud, his voice soft and deliberate. It is a study in the human heart, its passions, its pains, its capacity for both love and destruction. He leaned back in his armchair, his hands clasped, his little gray cells retracing the puzzle that had captivated him. The locked tea room, the cyanide-laced spoon, Beatrice Croft's 30-year vendetta for her sister Clara's murder by Sir Reginald Harrington. It was a crime of elegance and tragedy, a masterpiece of deception that only method and order could unravel. Poirot's reflections began with the scene itself. The glass-walled tea room, its lace curtains veiling a gathering of suspects, each with motives as tangled as the wildflower fields beyond. The locked room, he said. It was a distraction. A stage set to confound. The door, locked by Sir Reginald's key. The windows latched, yet the crime was not in the room's ceiling, but in the moments before, in the kitchen's quiet. The silver spoon, engraved with Reginald's initials, was the genius of the method. A thin coating of cyanide, dissolved in hot tea, masked by Darjeeling's aroma. So simple, Poirot murmured. Years of service, a mask for vengeance. Madame Croft, she wove her pain into a perfect crime, her loyalty a lie. Poirot sipped his tisane, the steam curling like the threads of the case. The Orient Express note, "Beware the Orient's shadow," had been a taunt from Beatrice, mailed to torment Reginald with Clara's memory. A clever touch, Poirot said, but it revealed her heart's obsession. The gardener's suicide, the hidden passage, the perfume vial, all were distractions, red herrings that tested his method. The little gray cells, they sift the chaos, he said, smiling. They see the spoon where others see only tea. He reflected on the motives, so human, so universal. Greed, resentment, love, revenge. They drive the heart to extremes, he thought. Beatrice's pain for Clara, buried for decades, was a wound that festered until it struck. She waited, Poirot said, with the patience of a saint and the resolve of a demon. Her confession, raw and unyielding, had been a release, her trial a formality. Justice, it was served,
but it does not erase the sorrow. Poirot's thoughts turned to the aftermath, detailed in letters from Candlewick. Amelia, now mistress of the estate, had transformed the greenhouse into a research hub, her hybrid plant, Clara's Grace, a symbol of healing. "She is young, but strong," Poirot said, recalling her letter's resolve. Eleanor, in her Mayfair townhouse, funded a hospital wing, her atonement for Reginald's sins. "Madame finds peace in giving," he noted. Victor, reformed in Ceylon, managed the tea trade with newfound purpose. "The Capitaine," he surprises even Poirot. Thorne, married to Eleanor, served the village with quiet dedication. "The Docteur, he builds a life from ashes." Candlewick Fields, under Amelia's care, bloomed anew, its tea room a place of community, not death. The village's whispers reached Poirot through Jap, who visited that evening, his pipe puffing as he recounted tales from Candlewick Fields. "It is a mirror," he said. "It shows us love twisted to hate, loyalty to betrayal, order to chaos. Yet, from chaos we find truth." The tea tin on his table, unopened, was a reminder of the case's elegance, simple, yet profound. "The world, it is full of such puzzles," he thought, his gaze on London's twinkling lights. Hercule Poirot, he will meet them all. A knock at the door announced a new letter, this one from Amelia, inviting him to a spring tea at Candlewick. "No silver spoons," she wrote, a touch of humor in her words. Poirot smiled, penning a reply. "Mademoiselle, I shall bring my own tisane, but I will come." The promise of renewal warmed him, a counterpoint to the cold justice of the courtroom. As the fire died to embers, Poirot sat once more, his thoughts settling. "The human heart. It is the greatest mystery," he said, his voice a whisper. "It poisons, it heals, it endures. And Poirot, he watches, he listens, he understands." The case of Candlewick Fields closed, but its lessons lingered, a testament to the delicate balance of truth and compassion. Outside, London hummed, its secrets waiting. Poirot's flat, a haven of order, stood ready for the next challenge. The tea room far away glowed with new life, its glass walls reflecting a future untainted by poison. Candlewick Fields, like Poirot's mind, was a place where chaos met clarity, and justice found its voice. And so, dear listeners, we bid farewell to Candlewick Fields. Poirot's reflections close our tale, but the echoes of truth remain. What did you take from this mystery? Its pain, its redemption, or its brilliance? Share your thoughts below and tell me, what puzzle should we unravel next? Until then, sweet dreams.